And hello, everyone. My name is Mike. My pronouns are he, him, and we are doing an impromptu session of Fall of Magic here on the Gauntlet calendar. We were supposed to run a different game. We had a bunch of last-minute cancellations, so we're doing something a little different. So my name is Mike. I will be the facilitator of this game. Little bit about myself. I've been playing role-playing games for a long time. In the past like 6 or 7 years, I've mostly been focused on story games and indie RPGs. And Fall of Magic is kind of really up my alley. I played it for the first time at PAX Unplugged 2019, and I just absolutely fell in love with this game. Anyway, a little bit about the Gauntlet. The Gauntlet is an online community of people who are into role-playing games. Mostly we work with games that are like in the indie game scene, the OSR scene, story games, got a few LARPers. We post about 100 games a month on a public calendar that anyone can join up. Folks who back us, back our Patreon do get advanced access to the calendar, so it's a little easier for them to actually get into games. If you're interested in the Gauntlet, you can check us out at gauntlet-rpg.com. My name is Mike. My pronouns are he, him. You can find me on Twitter. I'm at Mike Ferdinando. Anyway, enough about me. Let's introduce our other two players. Let's go clockwise around as I have you on my screen here. Anya, would you please introduce yourself?
Yep. Hi, my name is Anya. My pronouns are she, her. And I was expecting to play a different game tonight, but this looks beautiful. So I'm really, really excited. And I think that's about it.
Awesome. Glad to have you, and glad you're willing to try a little something unexpected and different tonight. Tim, would you say a few words about yourself?
Yeah, my name is Tim. My pronouns are he, him. Yeah, I definitely love to play TTRPGs. I tend to really gravitate toward anything in the more fantasy genre, which we are still in. It's just a different take on the fantasy role-playing experience, I think. So I'm really looking forward to trying it. I've been with the Gauntlet, I think, over a year now, and it's been a lot of fun. I actually wore a Gauntlet t-shirt to work today, and somebody asked me, like, explain your shirt, Tim. So I said, well, do you know what a tabletop RPG is? And she was like, no. So I was like, okay, well, let's start with that. But anyway, it was, yeah, it's, I do like to spread the word around. I'm a teacher, and so I definitely use like role-playing games as part of my teaching. Kids that, need to calm down. I noticed that they can very quickly when you get out the dice, you start telling a story, and suddenly they're just kind of in a different place where they're able to re-regulate themselves and be successful. So I guess maybe also adding another tool to my toolkit tonight. We'll see. This sounds like a cool game, and I'm excited to try it.
So very cool. And again, thanks for being flexible tonight, folks. I hadn't been planning to run this game, but we'll figure it out. This is a pretty fun, like, no prep game. I do need to do a little bit of prep here, though, and that's just getting access to the rules, and I didn't have the table set up on Roll20. So I'm going to pause the recording briefly just so I can do a little bit of housekeeping, and then we'll come back. Okay, we're back. I have set up, I've quickly set up the Fall of Magic module on Roll20 and linked for our players a few of the rules. So, Fall of Magic. This is pretty much a pure story game. In the basic game, and we're gonna be tweaking it a little bit, but in the basic game, we will play travelers who are accompanying. So each of us, myself included, we're each going to be creating a character who's going on a journey. across the land, and one of the members of our party is going to be a shared character that we're all going to be controlling. And that's basically the person who's going on the journey, and we are accompanying this shared character that's going across this journey that's trying to do something. In the basic game, that is the shared character is the Magus. And part of the ritual of starting the game is we read the introduction, which is magic is dying, and the Magus is dying with it. We travel together to the realm of Umbra, where magic was born. And that kind of sets the tone of the basic game. So in play, we would figure out who the magic is, who the Magus is, what they're doing, why they want to go to the land of Umbra, what they're trying to do. We'll also create our own player characters. And if you, I'm going to share a screen here so that anyone watching can see what we all are seeing. And that's the wrong button. Let's try this one. There we are. Okay, so this is a map of the land. The way this is going to work is we're going to, so you'll see that there are these 5 tokens at the top of the map. In the physical game, these are like campaign coins that have 2 sides. In this game, we'll see that each of these coins has 2 versions. So I'm going to move the candle one here so you can see that on one side the candle is lit, and on the other side the candle is burned down and gone out. The one with the crow, you've got a token with a crow and a token with an egg in a nest. The token with the sword, we've got the sword that's whole and a sword that's been broken. The other one, there's a river. One side is the river and the other side is the ocean. And finally, the copper one is a tree, the tree in the spring and summer, and a tree in the winter. So everyone would pick a coin, and you're free to like switch which side is up. We'll also together pick a coin to represent the person we are traveling with. Printed on the map are so basically the way this works is you don't have a lot of choices here when you create your character. You pick a name, and then you pick a title of one of these other places that will appear on the map. We're going to be using an abbreviated game. It's a supplement called Songs of the Axe and Fiddle. And so the Songs of the Axe and Fiddle, we've got slightly different lists of names and titles. And we also have a more limited journey. We're not going to be going all the way across the map. We're going to basically be focusing on a smaller area where there's just a few of these the areas of the map. So the way the game works is when we move into an area, and you can see that there are all these various areas. We've got Ravenhall, we've got the Oak Hills, Barleytown. We in the basic game, we always start at Ravenhall. When we move into a new location, one of the players will pick one of the they'll pick one of these story prompts. Like, for example, if you first move into Ravenhall, you may choose this. You may decide to choose. You're going to choose the story prompt of the bridge. You're facing the river, and then you frame a scene, and you tell us what your character's doing. If you want to bring other characters in, you certainly can. Don't have to. Yeah, you do. Basically, you just pick a story prompt and you frame a scene and you tell us this. You tell us the story using these story prompts. Until you get to a point where you think the scene is done, and then that's going to be the next person to go. Once everyone has introduced their characters and had a scene, basically we just kind of go around. If we want to stay in that area, we can choose. You can choose another. You can choose another prompt, and tell another story if you'd like. Or when it's your turn, and everyone's told a story from the setting that we're in, you can then choose to move our shared character to the next location. And in that case, you would pick the token that would be the shared character, and you'd move them on the next location. And that next location also has a prompt and a name and a prompt. So you would tell the story of the journey to that location, generally from the point of view of our shared character, but not necessarily. You can make it yourself, as you can make it about yourself if you'd like. So just to let's see. Just reading the rules, just to make sure I'm not forgetting anything important. So in playing the game, let's see. So in playing the game, in Fall of Magic, we take turn. I'm reading from the rule book here. In Fall of Magic, we take turns, one at a time, telling a small part of this shared story that we are telling together. During your turn, the other players may contribute ideas, make suggestions, and act out other characters, but you get final say over what happens during your turn. We also each get final say over what is true about our own character. So looking at the map, in this script, that's the location name. When we move to a new one, there's usually a story prompt. So Fall of Magic, the basic game, usually starts in Ravenhall, and we introduce our characters and bring them in. So in each turn, move your character token and describe the scene from your character's perspective. Before your scene ends, use the story prompt to add an additional element to your scene. So if we were starting in Ravenhall, again, you would put your character, you would put your token on the map next to whichever of those story prompts you wish to use, and you would tell the story of, you tell the story of introducing your character, and you would try to incorporate that story prompt into the scene you're doing. So you describe the scene from the perspective of your character. What's the place like? What do you see and hear? What's going on right now? What is your character thinking and feeling? And how you do this is entirely up to you. Underneath that scene is a story prompt. Before your turn ends, you must use the story prompt to add some bit of detail to the story that you're telling. And when you're done, you pass the turn to the next player. I found that in play, your scene, you just kind of you play your scene until it feels like you've come to a conclusion, and that's when you end. Some scenes might only take a couple of minutes. Others I've seen, people just kind of go on, especially if they're pulling in other characters. Sometimes the scene might go on for 10 or 15 minutes of real time. And we're all story gamers here, so I think we probably get that. So there's a couple of other things. You'll notice that some of these story prompts have a little plus next to them. If you are using, if you're in a scene where you've got a choice of story prompts and they have that little plus sign in front of them, those are called traits. So after describing your scene and you've incorporated one of those, after you've described your scene, select one of the traits and describe how that trait is now true about one of the characters that was in the scene. Could be your character, could be one of the other characters if you've incorporated a different character into your scene. If you are choosing a trait for another character, you do need consent of the other player. And then you write that trait down onto your character sheet. And normally in the game, we'd just be playing with like 3x5 index cards. In this game, we've got like basic journals, so I'll set that up briefly just so that we've got a little something we can write stuff down with. So on your turn, if your character is already on the map in the scene or in the location where we are, so basically when the turn comes back to you, once you've brought your character into a location, you can choose to do another story prompt, or you can choose to move. Well, the example I'm reading from is the Magus. When we do Songs from the Axe and Fiddle, we'll have a different shared character. But on your turn, if your character is already on the map, you may opt to move the Magus instead, advancing us along the dashed path to our new location. After moving the Magus, remove the other character tokens from the map, then describe the location and its story prompt from the perspective of the Magus. When you play the Magus, show us who they are, what they're thinking, and how we all travel together, just as if you would for your own character. And again, when you're moving the shared character, try to bring the other characters in, so that we can get a little interaction in. And so it's when you move the Magus, or again the shared character if we're doing one of the other stories, just so we get a little more perspective on who the Magus is. I've played this game probably 6 or 7 times, and every time the Magus is a little different. Often the Magus is an old man. I've seen the Magus be an old woman. There was one game we played where the player that introduced the Magus, I guess, had recently read T.H. White's The Once and Future King, and the Magus was a young child, because, like, taking the cue from that one Legend of Merlin, the Magus was aging backwards and was getting younger as time went on. So a couple of other things that could happen depending on where we end up. So I talked about the traits. There are other kinds of prompts that looking to see. Yeah, I'm going to look. So looking down here at the Stormguard Mountains, some prompts have numbers, and that indicates these are peril prompts. So if you choose a peril, describe the first line as you would a regular story. So basically, once you've entered and like set the scene, so that's like, so scouting ahead, you would you would describe this, scouting ahead, and you would tell us, and you would include the story prompt, the danger you fear. This is when we actually do roll a die. And so after you've described your scene a little bit, you roll the die, and then you see which of these new story prompts you need to add to the scene. So, scouting ahead, the danger you fear, you'd tell your story, and then after you had set the scene, then you'd roll a die, and then we would see whether the story prompt you'd want to add would be, ambush, news from the east, or sunbreak. Finally, there is a third kind of story prompt, and I'm looking for that. And like over here in Estalia, a leaf symbol next to a story prompt indicates change. So again, it works just like the other story prompts. However, when you're doing change, before you end your turn, you need to change or remove something from the information that you've written on your note card. And then you just, so this could, you could change your name, you could change your title. If you had picked up, if you picked up a trait from a previous, from a previous story prompt, you can remove the trait or you could change the trait. And then you tell us why this change is true after you've concluded your story. Let's see. There's, as you can see, there's like a sea area. So there's part where we can like take a travel by ship, and there's cards in the game that have islands that we could visit. And those also have their own story prompts. I'm not sure if we'll get there, but I think that'll depend on which tale we choose. This makes sense so far. I've been kind of throwing a lot at you. I think it'll probably make more sense once we actually start playing. So let me. So I'm going to pause the. So that's basically how we play this. So I'm going to pause the recording, and I need to create some journals for each of us to use for our characters. And then we'll probably have an off-camera discussion to figure out like which of the tales we want to do. So pausing the recording. Let me stop the screen share. Pausing the recording. Okay, I've made some character journals on our Roll20, and after discussing the various options in both the basic game and in the Songs of the Axe and Fiddle supplement, we've decided we know we're not going to get to the end, but I think we've decided that we're just going to go with the basic game as written, as out of the box. So this is going to be straight up Fall of Magic, and we'll get as far as we can. This game is scheduled to go a total of 3 hours. I've been talking for about 45 minutes so far, so we'll hopefully get about 2 hours of play in. And who knows if we have fun. I mean, I say this a lot, but if we have fun and we need another pickup game at some point in the future and folks are into it, we can always come back and pick it up where we left off. So, do we have a volunteer who wants to go first to start creating their character? And this isn't going to take, it's not going to take long. I'm happy to go first as an example if folks would prefer, or if anyone wants to hop in, that is absolutely fine, because there's not a lot to this.
Yeah, I'd love to see you walk through it, or else, if Anya wants to go, that's cool too. I want to see someone else do it.
Go ahead, Mike.
Okay, I'm happy. So I'm going to take the journal for character 1. Let me do an edit. So, I think I am going to be. I think my character is going to. So I'm going to choose Fawn as my name. And I think Fawn is a she, her. And I think Fawn will be a fox of Mistwood. I don't know yet whether that's I haven't decided yet whether that's a literal fox, or if that's like a nickname, or if Fawn is some kind of shapeshifter. Now that I'm thinking of it, Fawn, fox of Mistwood. I think she's some kind of a shapeshifter, like can maybe assume the form of a fox. Just think that sounds cool. So I'm going to save changes here, and because I am, we don't have it. I have an optional. There are a couple of optional coins that you could get, and one of which was an actual fox. I was going to take that one, but I think I'm going to take. I'm going to take the silver river and sea token to represent me, and I think I'm going to start. I think I'm going to start with the river side. So yeah, so I'm going to take the river. I'm going to take the river and sea token, and my character is Fawn, Fox of Mistwood. Say Mistwood. Yes, Fox of Mistwood. Ooh, would like to go next.
I'll go next.
Go for it, Anya.
I am Vago, Vago, Golem of Ravenhall. And I think Vago is the Golem of Ravenhall because she's the last survivor of defense of the city of Ravenhall some years ago. So she's probably a bit older.
I like it.
And I'll choose the sword.
And I am going to do this. And also in that, if you want to pick one of the sides as your token, you can also click on the default token section, and that'll set that character as your token. It really doesn't matter because that really only matters in like Roll20 if we're doing tactical combat or like initiative order, and that does not happen in Fall of Magic.
I'm not sure how to do that.
We do a share screen. I'll show you.
Yep.
So in your let me remove that. Yes,
Okay.
So so in your journal entry, what you can do is you can select a token that you want to use by just clicking on it, and it'll it'll highlight with that box and have the other thing. So once that's highlighted, you can just click use select token, and and there it is. Doesn't really make all that much of a difference. Just it's kind of there to remind you which token is yours. I just want to make sure that actually works for you because I have GM powers here.
No, it doesn't.
Doesn't.
Yeah, no.
Edit.
I'm just seeing avatar, name, and bio and info.
Okay, there's an edit button at the. Do you see an edit button at the top?
Yep. After I click it, I just see the same screen you're having, but just avatar, then name, and then bio and info.
Okay.
I don't have player's journal, tags, or default token.
Weird. So I've got it set. In players' journals can be edited and controlled. Okay. I must be doing something wrong. Because I want you to be able to like type stuff into the bio and info tab so that you can.
I am able to.
You are able to do that. Okay, but you don't have that. You don't have that use select token.
Yep.
Okay. Well, why don't we do this? So you wanted to use the sword? We'll just do that. I'll do it for you. Don't know why that doesn't work. Weird. Okay. Well, technical difficulties aside, Tim, do you have you made some choices for your character? And you're muted.
Of course. Thank you. I am Caspian, Fugitive of Stormguard. And he is a captain of the guard, and maybe he was run out of the keep for failing to discharge his duty. So whatever, I don't know why yet that was, or yeah, exactly how much trouble he's in, but seems like he has left there, maybe to avoid some kind of punishment for something. So
Nice. Do you have you chosen which of the 3 remaining tokens you'd like to use for your character?
yes, I like the tree.
3. Do you want the
I
tree
think.
in summer or the tree in winter to start?
Oh, good question. Let's go with the tree in winter to start.
Okay. All right. So let me consult the rules just to make sure I'm not forgetting something. Okay, I think we are just about ready to start. It's about 6 minutes before the hour. Why don't we take a short break and come back on the hour, and we'll start playing earnest.
Sounds good.
Awesome. See you in 6 minutes. And we're back. Before we get started, I just want to talk very briefly about safety at the gaming table. We are going to be using some safety tools. The 3 of us have played together plenty of times before, so we are familiar with the safety tools that we are using. I just want to make sure that we are all indeed all on the same page here. We're going to be using a layered safety approach with 3 safety tools. The first one is called Open Door, and that means we can all come and go as we please. Anyone can call a break at any time. And everyone is empowered to say that, I don't think this game isn't what I thought it was going to be. I'm going to resign, and hopefully we can play again in the future. We're also playing with the X card. The X card is a reactive safety tool. We can use that. Invoke the X card whenever something is happening at the table, whether that's in the game or whether that's in the metagame or whether that's like between other players. So if anything is happening that's making you uncomfortable, you can say the phrase X card. That means that's a signal that we're going to pause the game. We're going to have a chat. Let us know what it is that we need to change, what behavior needs to change, and we'll fix it and move on. Whether that means, whether that means we need to like rewind a scene and play it out and play a scene out without that element, or just move forward, or just have a discussion amongst each others because we're all adults here. We'll figure out what we need to do and change it and move on. And third, we are also using a proactive tool called Lines and Veils. We have a list of a number of topics that we need to tread carefully around. A line is a topic that we just simply won't include in the game. I won't add it, you won't add it. It's a topic we're just going to avoid. A veil is a topic that we may see signs that it happened. We could hear reports of it happening. We may hear, we can acknowledge that it exists in the world, but it's not going to happen on camera, and it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen to the player characters. Finally, there's a third column called Ask First, which means these are topics that might be okay in some circumstances and might not be under others. We'll just have we'll step out of the game for a moment and talk about that topic and put some bounds around it before we play with it. Do we have any questions on X-Card, Open Door, or Lines and Veils? Awesome. We've all played with these tools before, so we're so we know what I think we know what we're doing with them, but I just want to make sure that we are we know they're there. And those are all one. Yeah, okay. Normally I take some time to put a stick note that's floating on the top of my screen that has all of these lines and veils. I think we've picked ones that I pretty much use all the time, so I'm not going to take the time to do that now. Playing a little dangerously there, but I think we'll be okay. And if anybody notices someone else stepping on a line or a veil, please immediately X card. Okay. that concludes our safety discussion. So, so I'm going to be using the river token for Fawn. Anya's going to be using the sword token for Vago. And Tim is going to be using the tree token for Caspian. And I think we also need a token for the Magus. If it's okay with you, I would like to use the candle. Sound good to you folks? Okay. So I'm going to start by moving I'm going to move the candle into Ravenhall. Would anyone like? Does anyone want to start? Or I'm happy to start to kind of like get the ball rolling. But if anyone would like to, anyone else would like to start, that's absolutely fine with me.
Go ahead, Mike.
Okay. So the scene opens. We are looking at Ravenhall, and Ravenhall is it's more than a manor house. It's less than a castle. So it doesn't really have true fortifications. But it's a large stone structure with with a couple of towers, flags flying jauntily in the wind. The land around it is mostly fairly lush. I'm going to say it's late summer. There's a young woman with red hair, and so the camera kind of like comes down in, and she is standing outside, just outside the say one of the back gates in a little courtyard between the side of the building and a more formal garden. There's a large, it's not super large, but there's a stone pool. It's probably about maybe 15 feet across, and it's it's a circular stone pool. It looked like it might be a fountain, except there's no like fountain in the middle. It's just a pool of water that's maybe 6 or 8 inches deep. The water is perfectly clear. There's no there's no algae, there's no frogs or fish in the pond. It's just this clear pool of water that's just outside. I think there's probably like a stonework patio that's around it. And she might be a young woman. She might be older than she appears. It's kind of hard to say, but she's got red hair. She's wearing just a very simple dress. It's kind of like beige with a little bit of it's beige and green with a little bit of embroidery, but it's not super fancy. She's got a beige skirt, practical leather boots, and she has a concerned look on her face, and she's like looking into the pool. And she's looking worried. And she's looking into the pool. The image, and again, like the camera's looking over her shoulder, and we see her reflection in the pool. And at first it's perfectly still. Then there's some like ripples in the then there's some ripples in the pool that don't seem to come from anywhere. And when the ripples stop, looking back out from looking back out of the pool where her reflection had been is a fox. As if there was a fox that was like, had its paws on the ridge of the pool and was looking in. So we're seeing the reflection of this, this red fox looking back. And the pool ripples, the camera shifts, and we're looking at the young woman again. And she says to herself, "You came and I called. You gave us, you once did us a great service, and now that you have asked us to return, and now that you've asked us to return the favor, I am here. It is a duty and an honor." And she turns around, and apparently standing there all this time, but wasn't on camera, is a rather stern-faced woman of, again, hard to tell this woman's age. Perhaps she's, she's older than 40, she's younger than 60. Kind of hard to say. She's dressed in fine blue robes with gold trim, and a star pattern down each of the sleeves. And she's holding her hand, she's got her hands folded, and she nods. And this woman says, "Fawn, I do thank you for joining me on this journey. For as you know, the weavings of magic are unraveling themselves, and I need to get to the bottom of this, but I cannot make this journey alone. And I thank you for coming." And I think that's the scene.
That's so cool.
I didn't include any of the other characters because you haven't introduced yourselves yet. So would anyone like to go next?
I'll go next.
Go for it.
Okay, so I'm
So
gonna
take your token and set it next to whichever story prompt you wish to use.
I can choose Rose Gardens, right?
You may.
Okay. So these are the Rose Gardens next to Ravenhall. A small area in the patio. This garden was set up a couple decades ago after to commemorate a great battle nearby, and those who fell in the battle. Vago, Golem of Ravenhall, comes here almost every day to take care of the roses. She's an older woman. Every single day she carries with her the same sword that she used at the very same battle that the Rose Garden commemorates, but it's beginning to weigh too much for her. So she might get just one more chance to use it in combat, which she'll do proudly. Her dark hair is, for the most part, already grayed out, and she wasn't expecting the call of the Magus, but I think she sees this opportunity to wield her sword for good once more, even if she's unable to stop the fall of magic. She will protect the Magus on her journey. And I'm gonna choose. Okay, give me a second. I think after arriving here, she sees in the distance the Magos and Fawn talking in the fountain, and she walks over to them, answers, basically pays her respects to the Magus, tells her I will answer your call once again. And I think she's just she one final time looks back at the rose garden, and I'm gonna pick beautiful from the prompts, because I think that both the roses that are living right now in the garden and those roses that have died, it's reminds her of how even the death of the roses brings significance to the beauty of the roses when they were alive. And maybe in the death of magic, we can be grateful for the beautiful millennia that we both served the magic and magic served us. And that's the scene.
I love it. That's great. Go ahead and add beautiful as a trait to your character. So you should be able to edit that in the bio. Or if you want to go to the attributes and abilities tab, you can click add and then just add that in and just like add a new attribute and just call it beautiful. Tim, I think it is your turn.
Okay. I'm going to place my token on the menagerie. So the menagerie, I think it's another part of the grounds around Ravenhall, and the late summer afternoon sun is shining on the lush vegetation there. There's trees, there's flowering plants, but they're not tended. They're sort of made to look like this, right? This wild area. And there are animals there, all kinds of animals, things that shouldn't be living there, but in this area of Ravenhall they do. And yeah, so I mean, but there's deer, but then there's tigers and massive snakes slithering around in the upper branches of the tree. And they're all tame. They all just sort of coexist there. There's no fences, there's no cages. They just live in this place. And I think then you see walking through one of the trodden paths that kind of runs through this area. You see a middle-aged man. His armor is tarnished. He hasn't, he's unshaven, he's unkempt. Dirt is streaked across his face. He walks into the menagerie, and when he first sees the animals, you see his hand kind of strays to his sword hilt. And then when he sees the how gentle the animals are in this place. You know, his hand relaxes and falls to his side, and looking at the animals, I think we go inside his mind, the mind of Caspian, fugitive of Stormguard, and the sight of this place of nature in harmony brings him back to his career in Stormguard. You see a bunch of young soldiers training in the castle grounds of Stormguard, practicing the joust, and Caspian is standing there instructing them, shouting orders. One of the young men gets knocked off his horse and sticks out his arm as he's landing, and there's a crack, the arm breaks, and everybody rushes around. It's a bad break. This young man is in trouble. And then out from Stormguard, you see this sort of wizened old man, his skin brown and his hair gray, hanging down in strands. He emerges from Stormguard. His arms, and indeed any part of his body that you could see, are thickly tattooed with images of animals. And this wise man, this druid, he comes out of Stormguard, and he walks to the young man who has broken his arm, and you see him put his hands on the man's arm, and he begins chanting, and sweat beads on the old man's forehead as he chants. But when he's finished, the young man kind of stands up, tests his right arm out, and then you see Caspian nod to the old mage and say, "Many thanks as always, master." And the old man nods and hobbles back into the castle. And you come back to Caspian in the menagerie, and we don't know why he left Stormguard, but I think that the essence of what he remembers, this idea of Stormguard being a place of healing, of being a place of magic, it is not that way anymore. And he has left and he's made his way here. And that's it.
I love it. So it's back to me. I could choose to move the Magus to our next prompt, or I could choose to continue our scenes here in Ravenhall. And we haven't actually gotten all our 3 characters and the Magus together yet. So I think I'm going to continue to play in I think I'm going to continue to play here in Ravenhall. So I think I am also going to go to the menagerie. So while this man, while this man has shown up in the menagerie and he seems, I guess the worse for wear. Do I have that? Do I have that right, Tim? So, so yes. So I think Fawn, walking. So I think Fawn, like, walks past the does walk past the rose garden and sees Vago there. And I'm going to say that Fawn and Vago have met before. Because Fawn this is not Fawn's first visit to Ravenhall. She was here once it was a while ago, but she has met Fawn, so she kind of waves. But then walks over to the menagerie just to see the other animals that are just kind of here. And meets up with well, let's see, how do I want to do this? So I think she enters the menagerie by herself, and I think perhaps the Magus is, that older woman in the finer robes. I think she is following, but a ways off, just kind of like more observing with a bit of an impassive look on her face. But Fawn comes in, and Fawn comes in, and she seems to be able to walk right up to animals, and they don't seem to spook too badly when she approaches. I mean, I guess some will, but she greets some deer, and again, one walks right up to her, and she's able to like reach out and gingerly like pet a wild deer. She holds out her hand, whistles, and she doesn't whistle. She holds out her hand very, very, very still and holds that position for a while. And at one point, she'd put her hand in her pocket, and there had been a small amount of seed or grain or something in her hand, and she just stands there with her hand out for a good like 10 minutes. And at one point, a songbird just like lands in her hand and starts picking at the grain that she had. And again, she doesn't move. And she just like watches the bird, and like flicks her hand slightly, and the bird flies off. And she also gets to thinking, and we see a bit of a flashback here, and we're in a different woods, similar to this one, but it's different. And the woods are, and at first it looks again like the peaceful scene. But there's a roar from above, and Fawn looks up, and a great flying beast. It's at night, and a great flying beast like swoops ahead, and then the sky lights up as this beast, like as flames shoot out of this beast's mouth at the forest, and the trees burst into flame, and you hear screams in the background, and she's she like runs away from the fire. And that's when she sees some, I mean, first of all, she's seeing some true magic here from a dragon that is attacking. But then she sees, again, this looks pretty much exactly the way she does now, although perhaps is wearing different robes. There's the Magus there, and who is performing some kind of, it's like saying mystic words, and is making mystic gestures, and suddenly there's a crack of thunder, and like a torrential downpour of rain comes out of a completely clear sky, and puts out the forest fire. And I think that happens while Fawn was, I think, think perhaps like, cowering behind a fallen log, and she's like with no real escape route from these flames. This magical rain comes down from the sky. It was apparently called by the Magus. You know, yeah, the Magus sees her, and the Magus sees her and walks over to her and says, "It's all right, child. We'll, I'll do what I can to fix the damage and to make sure that dragon never comes back." And at that, the Magus like looks around and sees that the forest fire is mostly out. And then she like walks into the woods and then just seems to disappear. Fawn like snaps out of this reverie, and that's when she sees Caspian, who is perhaps like having his own bit of reverie, and the two catch each other's eye, and she approaches. Hello, sir. Hello, sir. What brings you here?
Well, this is a bastion of magic, is it not?
Well, it was once. Perhaps it shall be again. And
You seem
perhaps it is the closest that one will find to a bastion of magic, in these trying times.
Indeed. And you look right at home here. Are you a mage?
Mage, no. I may have a little bit of my own magic, but I'm certainly no magus.
I don't know where I'm supposed to be. And I think that's why I ended up here. I want to serve, and I have no one to serve.
I think at that, a voice again. I think this is one of those scenes where the Magus is often like off camera and is like might be there, like the camera pulls back and like Magus is just there, and a rather stern voice, again from an older woman, says, "Well then, I may be if you are looking for one to serve. I am looking for ones to accompany me on a journey."
And where will we go and why?
That is a long story. Come, join me. And she like leads you into Ravenhall. That might be the scene. So we can pick it up here, or I mean, if Ravenhall doesn't have a story prompt per se, but this might be a good point to since we're more or less. I was going to try to pull Vago into the story, but it just kind of, I don't know, just kind of didn't happen. We can, so this would be a time to, I forgot to do the opening ritual of this game, which is actually kind of important, and that is to read the introductory prompt, which is magic is dying and the Magus is dying with it. We travel together to the realm of Umbra, where magic was born. And that might be the answer to your question. So that was my scene. I don't know if we're necessarily keeping strict order here, but we've all gone at least once in Ravenhall. So if someone would like to, again, keep playing in Ravenhall, we certainly may. Or if you would like to, move the journey forward and move the Magus to the next area. And
I'll move the Magus to the next area.
okay. Let me just reread that again just to make sure I've got this right.
Yep.
Again, I'm just reading this from the rulebook. On your turn, if your character is already on the map, you may opt to move the Magus instead, advancing us along the dashed path to the next location. After moving the Magus, remove the other character tokens from the map. Then describe the new location and its story prompt from the perspective of the Magus. So I'm going to take my token off the map. So we are at the Oak Hills, the ending of summer.
Describe the location and its story prompt from their perspective. Okay, I think it's a few days later, maybe a week later, the time it took to make the preparations to move. When we arrived to the Oak Hills, it's a series of hills rolling into the horizon, filled with many trees, and just the first of the leaves are turning brown. The Magus always dressed for the occasion. I think she's donning a golden, what's the word? A golden robe as we walk into the Oak Hills. She is reminiscent of the last time she was here. Maybe she hasn't traveled, not in a long time, but certainly in a few years. The last time she was here, it was to protect the forest of disease. And she's glad that the trees have survived, and she is also glad that her quest has been answered by Caspian, Fawn, and Vago, as it's not only the trees that sometimes need help, but even the Magus herself. And that's
Nice. I love it. So I think it would be Tim's turn to pick a story prompt.
Okay.
In the Oak Hills.
I will go with making camp. It's these 4 that are like right around it, right?
Yeah, so yeah, it's making camp. So that is so these are trait prompts. So go ahead and describe go ahead and set your scene about describing making camp, and then choose one of those traits at the end of your story that you can add to your character, or with the other player's consent, you can add that trait to a different character if you'd like.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm thinking about late summer, maybe even early autumn now, evening. And I think that the day has been very hot, and it's been humid, and there have been flies buzzing around us, trying to bite any bit of bare skin as we ride along. And the sun starts to set, and the air, it cools considerably, and this breeze, this cool breeze, kind of starts blowing down the road. And I think everybody just suddenly realizes how tired and miserable they've been this day. And we bring our horses off the road to a suitable piece of ground between the road and the forest. And I think you see Caspian, he is starting to gather wood for a fire. And as he's going into the wood, he is whistling the entire time. And I think he brings, he's bringing back armfuls of wood. And I think you see the Magus asks him why he's whistling. And Caspian tells her that he learned when he was a boy that when you are in the wild places of the world, you should respect the other creatures around you. You should respect the fact that you're entering their home, and by whistling, that's his way of sort of letting all the other denizens of the wood know that he's there, so that they won't be surprised by him, and so that they'll know that he's simply passing through and will be, leaving them alone. And I think that I will give Caspian the trait kind. And that's the scene.
Lovely. I like that very much.
I have an idea. Can I go next?
Absolutely.
Just one question for you, Mike, because my idea depends on that. Will we know that you are able to, that Fawn is able to transform into a fox yet?
That I don't think that's come up yet. That was going to be part of my scene.
Okay, then if you want to go ahead, and I'll go after.
Okay. Go to at dawn your morning ritual. So it's very early in the morning. The sky is still dark. The sky is just starting to brighten. We see the the 4 like bedrolls around the campfire, and the fire has definitely died down. It's still warm. There's still some embers, a little bit of smoke rising, but it had mostly gone unattended through the night. There's the 4 bedrolls, but one is missing. Fawn is not there. And the camera now sees a fox, kind of like stalking through the woods, apparently chasing a mouse, perhaps chasing a mouse or perhaps a rabbit. There's a pounce. There's a short chase. There's a pounce. But the quarry escaped the fox's grasp. And as the sky starts to brighten, the fox enters a glade in the forest, so like a bit of an opening, not a glade, a veil in the forest where it's opened up a bit. And the fox kind of like walks into the center of this like opening in the trees. There's some brush on the ground, but there's not shadows, and that's when the sun's starting to rise, and the fox climbs up onto a stump and sits rather primly on this stump and is looking toward the east as the sun is rising. And it gets, as the sky gets brighter, and the first the first rays of light are like coming through the trees, lighting up this clearing in the woods. Sunlight's filtering through the leaves of the trees are just starting to turn yellow, just starting to turn a little orange. But it's at those greens of late summer. And again, we're looking, we look at the perspective goes like perhaps from the fox's eyes, looking up through the trees as this sunlight is filtering in through. And then the camera shifts back, and it's Fawn sitting on this stump, not a fox. As she's sitting there, she's sitting there, like just watching, watching the sunrise. Oh, hey, here's a little here's a little detail I just thought of. When we saw the fox like looking up through the trees, there's just kind of like a leaf that was kind of stuck in the fox's fur, like right behind one of its ears. And then when we come back, and then like looking in the distance, and we come back, there's a leaf stuck in Fawn's hair in pretty much exactly the same spot as it was on the fox's head. Fawn sighs deeply, gets up, and walks back to camp. And I think that's the scene.
That's really beautiful. I'm gonna go to Dan as well. And maybe it takes us a couple of days to go through the Oak Hills. And by this point, I think we've gotten to know each other just a bit. And Vago's morning routine is basically waking up and doing drills. So she, like most days, wakes up, doesn't see Fawn, which is always a bit surprising that someone is able to wake up earlier than she is, and then goes ahead and wakes up Caspian. And I ask you, Caspian, sun is rising up. Let's train for a while before breakfast.
Don't you ever take a day off?
Not when there's a service to be made.
Fair enough. But we train every day, but I haven't gotten to see you use that sword of yours.
But perhaps you'll be you'll be seeing me today then. And she pulls up this. It's huge by any means. Maybe not huge for Caspian, but it's certainly waiting a bit to her right now. This was a sword that was cast for her when she was much younger. So I don't know. Maybe we walk into the forest in order not to disturb the Magus, and I tell you, so you want to try your luck?
Yeah, I mean, I want to see where that nickname came from. The Golem of Ravenhall. That is quite the name. That is quite the epithet. Let's see if the golem still has it. Now, just to pause, I'm imagining that like you're gonna like kick my butt, basically, right? Like, if that's okay with you.
Yeah. I think she'll be super winded after.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like the first time like I parry like a sword blow. Like just like the force of your blow, though, it's just like it's so powerful, right? It's just like it's that feeling of like it almost like turns my arms to jelly, right? That feeling of like the vibrations from it. And I think like I almost dropped my sword and I have to like yield and just be like, okay, I see now.
I extend you a hand.
Can I add something? At the conclusion of your duel, you hear one person applauding, and over like a ways back, like Fawn's apparently been standing there watching your duel the whole time and is like giving you a one woman round of applause now that you're done.
Well, now you see what. I'll kind of like sheepishly grab my sword and shove it in the sheath and say, well, now you see what we do every morning. Where have you been?
Oh, I've been out in the forest scouting for supplies, and she scouting for supplies, and she produces a basket that's got probably about a dozen small wild apples, because hey, it's late summer, right? Looking for a few things to aid our journey.
I pick an apple and just tell you to we should go back to see if the Magus is awake by now. Let's have breakfast. Certainly Caspian needs it. It's a shame you didn't get some protein.
Alas, I tried. And to that, Fawn adds, I tried to catch a rabbit, but I was unsuccessful.
If you want to catch a rabbit, for that you need a fox.
Oh, I know.
And
I think that's the scene.
Yeah.
That was awesome. That was a great scene. I really like that one.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're all on the map. So whoever wants to go next, you're free to do more scenes here in the Oak Hills, or we could move the Magus.
Yeah, just a question about the map.
Yep.
Like I see, like at this point, it seems like we could move to like Barleytown. We could move Hall of the Woods. Is there like a particular?
We need to follow. I'm sharing screen again, so anyone who's watching
maybe
this,
I'm not totally clear on what.
So what we need to do is basically follow this we're following this path. So
Oh, I see.
here,
Okay.
so there's
Yeah.
this path that we're following.
That
So-
makes
so-
sense now. Yeah. I was looking at
Yeah,
like where the
so-
tokens were, and I'm thinking like, wait, are we Mistwood? No, but we just
Nope.
follow the path. Okay.
Yeah, we just follow the
perfect.
path. So the
Yeah,
next, so
yeah.
our next is going to be Barleytown. After Barleytown, we'll have a choice. We can either go, so after Barleytown, we have the choice. We can either go south to the Stormguard Mountains or north to Mistwood. And I know that we have someone from Stormguard and we also have someone from Mistwood. So when it's whoever's moving the Magus there gets to make the choice as to which path we're going. And then that's going to and which path you choose there is going to determine the next couple of the next couple of locations.
Right. Got it. Okay, that makes sense now. Thank you.
So yeah, when we get to this point, yeah, need to choose to either go south or north. I'll just say that so far when we've gotten to every game I've ever played with a Fall of Magic, when we get to this point, I've only ever gone to Stormguard. I've never gone up to Mistwood. Just for whatever reason, every game we play, people want to go to the mountains. Anyway, but you know, it doesn't really matter. I'm gonna stop our share here. So I think we've all gone. Does anyone have a particular, let's see, I know Anya, you moved to Magus last time, so I think what order we've gone. I think it might be my turn. Does that sound about right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to move Magus on to Barleytown. Took it off the map. So it takes a few days to get through the Oak Hills. And you know, the Oak Hills, they're forested, they're hilly. It's not mountainous, but it's been hot. The hills start to flatten out a little bit and turn from rather like and turn to more like more gentle rolling hills as the forest thins out. And the forest thins out, and the road we're traveling on becomes a bit more well-traveled. And instead of forests, we're now seeing cultivated farmland. There's fields of grain. It's a lot of wheat. It's a lot of barley. And as we continue down the path, it seems to be mostly barley. And and the Magus, there's toward the end of that day, from when we've left the Oak Hills and have been traveling pretty much all day through this farmland. On a hill that's rising above most of the land, we do see that there is indeed a town coming up ahead. And the Magus says, well, we do need to stop in Barleytown. I think we'll just spend a single night there. In the morning, we'll purchase what additional supplies we need for the road, and then we'll hopefully move on. I would ideally like to keep a low profile in this town. It's just, Barleytown can be a lot, shall we say. And as the four of us approach Barleytown, I think there's like a wooden perimeter. I think there's like a wooden stockade that's around the town itself, just to keep out predators, to keep out bandits, that sort of thing. It's not a particularly strong fortification, but it's somewhat defensible. And so we do have to go through a gate, and as we're going through the gate, like the guards notice, like asks us, the guards ask us what is our business here, and the Magus looks up and says, "Well, friends, we're simple travelers. We're just want to pass through, perhaps spend the night." I was going to say it's getting on toward evening when we actually enter the town, so we wanted to get in before they close the gates behind. And one of the guards looks at the Magus and looks at the rest of us and looks at the Magus hard again and said, "Oh, we have a special guest in town tonight. Oh, this is fantastic. Welcome. It is our honor to host. Come. Come. The Barley Lord himself will want to know you're here. Please." And the Magus is like, "Oh, I was hoping this wasn't gonna happen." And a couple of the other guards like run into town, and like the Magus is in town. The Magus is in town. And there's this almost completely impromptu, I won't say it's a parade, but people are like coming out and like lining the streets as the four of us like come into town, and the Magus is like, "Oh my God, why?" Like seems like more embarrassed than you've ever seen the Magus before. But yeah, we're basically led by an honor guard up to the largest building in town. It's a largest building in town. It's kind of like at the crest of the hill. It's it's more of a large manor house rather than like a castle or a fortress or anything like that. It's got a stone fortress. It's got a stone foundation, but it's mostly made of wood. It has a peaked red roof, and so we kind of like wind around the hill to the top of the to the hall of the Barley Lord, and as we approach, there's a small crowd that's gathered there, and standing in front is a portly man. I'm just kind of imagining that. I'm kind of imagining that famous painting of like Henry VIII, like portly man with a beard. He's got kind of a floppy hat, and like a fancy but somewhat ill-fitting jacket. Like it was probably made for him when he was perhaps 30 pounds lighter. But he's got a very jovial expression on his face. Puts his arms up, says, welcome, my friends, welcome. It is an honor for us to host the Magus on an unexpected and impromptu visit. Please, come in. And footmen and grooms attend to your horses, and the four of you are led into the hall of the Barley Lord. I think that's the scene. Who'd like to go?
I can go.
Go for it.
Okay. I think despite how late it is, by the time we arrive to the Barley Lord's home, and maybe the festivities as it seems start, Matilda, whom I think I've met before from the farmers market, gets into the Barley Lord's manor and tells us that asks first she goes to the Magus, asks how long we're staying. We're staying for a single night, and so she sends for the three of us to go to her farm and grab as many things as possible for our journey. So we go ahead to Matilda's farm, who has just the first of what in what month does summer ends? Because I want to say pumpkins. She's got this.
Yeah, we can have pumpkins. We could say it's. I mean, like it's the. Summer usually ends in like August or September. So yeah, we can have some early pumpkins in September.
The earliest of pumpkins and the earliest of crops for the season. I think maybe she even offers us some animals, maybe to get with us. And I look at Caspian and like we should probably take it. It's for your health.
Need that protein.
And I think we don't realize until she says goodbye to us that most of these things are too much to carry if we were to go into the mountains. And I think that's the scene.
I love it. I think it's your turn, Tim.
Okay. I put my token on the old Abbey. I think that there's this, this grand reception that we received on the way into town, and mostly people are there to see the Magus, but simply by our association with her, there's a certain amount of attention I think that's lavished on Fawn and Vago and me, and almost like we're suddenly these minor celebrities, right? Or that we must be. The consensus of the people of Barleytown appears to be that we must be some kind of folk of great importance, right? If we would be the associates of the Magus when she ventures forth. And I think that Caspian is extremely uncomfortable about this. He doesn't feel that he would deserve anybody's adulation or praise. And I think at some point in the evening, he slips out and starts wandering through Barleytown and sees an abbey, an old stone abbey, overgrown, the walls overgrown with vines. The wooden roof looks like, has been patched and replaced hundreds of times over the years, but yet, it still stands sturdy in its little corner of Barleytown. And Caspian goes inside and he sits on a bench, and the Mother Superior of the Abbey, who runs the Abbey, she sits, right? This woman in a robe with kind of a robe over her head, a simple robe, sits kind of down the bench from him. And I think Caspian starts talking to her about his failure to uphold his vows at the Stormguard, the Stormguard Keep. People in this town think of him as some kind of hero just because he showed up with the Magus, and he's not. And I think the woman at the other end of the bench tells him that there's many different kinds of heroism, and perhaps he should be open to that fact. And then she takes down her hood, and you see that it's not actually the Mother Superior, it's the Magus. And she gets up and quietly walks out of the Abbey and leaves Caspian there, sitting in the dark and the quiet of the Abbey with that thought.
I love it. It's about 12 past the hour. I meant to call a break on the hour. Why don't we take 5 minutes? We'll come back and maybe do another like half hour play. Then we'll kind of like either tie things up or like set things or like end on a cliffhanger. Do something. So see you in 5. And we're back. I think it is my turn to put my token on the map. And I think I'm going to do a little comic relief. It's next morning. It's next morning. It's definitely, people have been up for a while. The local farmers market is set up, and we see Fawn and Vago in the farmers market, and Fawn is just kind of saying, "You got how many pumpkins? Wait, you got how much? We can't carry that on our horses. We're gonna need to buy a cart, and maybe some mules." Well, I guess
know we can't. And that's why we are here at the market.
Fine. Well, I mean,
we're good for. I think we're good for supplies for at least a week. So maybe.
Well, I mean, I guess it depends on how much you like pumpkins, but anyway, okay. Well, we'll do what we can here. So, like little montage scene, I think here of like the three of us like talking to various merchants, like looking at one ramshackle cart, looking at a ramshackle cart that's going to fall apart the next wheels are going to fall off over the first like rock that we go over. Then we're examining this like really fancy elaborate cart that we absolutely don't have the funds to purchase, and then we find a decent small cart, and and then we're like looking at some donkeys, no, looking at some oxen, no, and we end up getting a single large draft horse to pull pull this cart. And we and we're doing this, and at one point when we're like not long after we've finally purchased this draft horse to pull our cart, and we load our stuff into the cart. We're walking past some poultry vendors that has like cages of live chickens, and Fawn cannot keep her eyes off of these chickens, and they're just absolutely distracting her. To which she says, turns to her friends like, look, hey, I just remembered one thing I need to take care of, and it's kind of a little personal. So why don't I catch up with you back at why don't I catch up with you in maybe an hour at the East Gate, and then we'll be on our way. And Fawn turns around and walks past these chickens that she just can't stop looking at, and she walks into an alley between two brick and wooden buildings, and she's gone for a little bit, and I guess the two of you do whatever you're going to do. And a few minutes later, out from that alley bounds a fox in broad daylight. You don't normally see foxes bounding in broad daylight, but you do now. And this fox just bounds out of there and runs across the farmer's market, and there's some shrieks, and they're saying look out, oh, you better guard the. And the fox just jumps over a fence into jumps over a little pen where a few of these chickens were, and yes, just go flying, and there's some chasing around, and then we see a fox with a chicken in its mouth hop up over the fence and just starts running through the streets of Barleytown with a farmer with a pitchfork over its with a farmer with his pitchfork over its head chasing the fox. And there's and the viewers at home just see a it's just comical how fox goes over here and ducks under something, and waits for the farmer to go by, and then it goes in the other direction. And anyway, an hour later, at the East Gate, with the Magus and Caspian and Vago are at the cart with their other. So one of you is riding the cart. Your riding horse is there on a lead, and that's when Fawn rejoins you, and she's got a still alive chicken under her arm. It says, yeah, we're got this one for later. We'll add this one to our supplies. Puts chicken in the cart, gets on her horse, and we leave.
Can I add something?
Please.
I think in the 2 minutes that Fawn went into the alley, I turned to Caspian and I tell him, if she wants chicken, we can exchange pumpkins for chickens. We have a cart full of pumpkins. And I go and exchange a couple of pumpkins. And as soon as we are in the East Gate and Fawn arrives with the live chicken, I show you a cage with a couple of chickens inside, just because I want to see the eyes in Fawn big as plates.
And and she puts the chicken. She looks at that. She looks at Vago. She looks at the chickens in the cage. She says, "What's the fun in that?" I think that's the scene.
I love it. That's right.
So I think we've all gone. Anya and I have each moved the Magus.
Yeah.
So Tim, I think it's your turn. And at this point, I think we probably have enough time to do one more location. So you can move the storm. So the path does. Let me switch to sharing, so we can all see this here. So as you can see, our path diverges. We can take the south paths to the Stormguard Mountains, from which Vago is a fugitive. Or we can take the north path, which will lead us to Mistwood. And if you're moving the Magus, you get to choose which path we are taking.
Okay, so I am going to, I think I'm going to move the Magus here to Mistwood. Mistwood, what slows you down? All right. I think that we continue on from Barleytown. And I think that the road actually descends a little bit. We're out of the larger hills of the Oak Hills. We're even out of the more rolling hills of Barleytown, and we are descending into a wooded valley, Mistwood. And it is indeed misty, at least in the mornings, right? It's a low-lying area, and there's fog in the mornings. The autumn is getting on a little bit further, and so the days are hot and the mist burns off, but the evenings are cool and the night is almost cold and clammy. And when we wake up in the morning, our sleeping rolls will be wet with the dew. Our fire will be just smoldering, producing very little warmth by that point. And we all wake up every day just cold and shivering, having slept very poorly, and having just that feeling of like when you're cold at night, it's just the worst, right? Like you keep waking up and you keep like shivering, and then like you fall asleep for only a short time, and you wake up and you're shivering. And I think it's that slows our pace. Like I think everyone is just tired and just moves more slowly. And I think especially for the Magus, her power is dimming, and maybe being in this place where she was once able to this is a place where she was able to sort of be in the height of her power, right? And to use her magic for the things that the protection of people and the protection of animals. And being in this place now and just being cold and wet and miserable and knowing that her power is waning, I think we see, especially the Magus, we see the fatigue in her eyes, and that like she's moving especially slowly. And the three of us, even more than we are protecting her, it's almost more that we are there to urge her on and encourage her as we travel through this cool and misty environment.
That was really cool. That's really cool. I like that a lot. I like that a lot. I think that gives us a lot of flavor to play with. Anya, I think it is your turn.
Okay. I think I'm gonna go. Trail of the Rangers. As we've spent more than a couple of days than we expected in Mistwood, it's clear that the seasons are changing. I'm not sure what's the word in English, but the humidity in the woods is beginning to get trapped, and the mist is transforming into just this heat, this constant humid heat beneath the trees. So from a couple of days with that were colder than we were expecting, it's turning into basically an oven for us for the time being. In the mornings, I think the drills session is much shorter than in the past couple of weeks. Maybe we haven't slept, haven't had proper sleep for the past few days, and as Caspian was telling, or as the Magus was telling, we are mostly cheering on each other to get through Mistwood. But I think in conversation, probably it's come up that Fawn comes from this area, and I'm not sure if pressure is the right word, but every day I try to get out of you, Fawn, the secrets of Mistwood. Do you know any faster way that we could get out of here? It's been honestly miserable for a couple of days.
Well, we are hitting Mistwood at the worst time of year. This is the turn of the season. Yeah, you never know. It's going to be really cold some nights. It's going to be really cold and damp some nights. It's going to be really hot and humid some nights. It's going to be rainy some days. About the only thing that you can count on the weather here in Mistwood at this time of year is it's going to be wet. And no, unfortunately, there really isn't a shortcut.
That's a shame. I think I tell you as the cart gets stuck in the muddy ground of Mistwood, and
Or I could say there isn't a shortcut that we can use to take our horses and our cart through.
Oh. I don't know.
We probably don't want to
I-
go that, and we probably don't want to go that way either.
Yeah, I think I turn to the Magus and I look at her tired, and maybe she's spending most of her time in the cart these past few days. And I tell you, as much as I'd like to, I don't think it's a good idea for the Magus. And as I begin pushing the cart, signaling to Caspian, and I don't think, and I don't really think that any of us want to leave the pumpkins behind. And that's the scene.
As I put a shoulder into the cart and say, "All right, Vago, I've been eating plenty of protein. I'm gonna let's go." Start pushing it out of the muddy rut that it's in.
Love it. Love it. I guess it's my turn. Let's see. So it's nighttime. It's we've been in Mistwood. We've been in Mistwood for a few days now. Fawn has assured everyone that we are getting close to the end, and the Magus seems to agree, but it doesn't look like it's ending. I'm thinking of I'm kind of thinking of the scene of the hobbits in Mirkwood from The Hobbit, where it doesn't look like they're close to the edge, but they actually are. But it's another like clammy night. I think it's neither particularly hot nor particularly cold tonight, but it's muggy, and people are all having, like, none of us are having a great night's sleep. And again, it's night, and the moon is out, and the moon is shining through the mist. And again, we see our campsite near the road, and there's 4 bedrolls, but there's only 3 people sleeping in them. And the other thing we noticed in this area is there's a number of trees that have like blackened trunks. Like there's been a fire here at some point in the past, which really makes you wonder how, given how wet and damp Mistwood is, makes you wonder how there could have been a fire here, but there was. And the camera goes deeper into this forest, and this is a part of the forest where, for some reason or other, the fire was a long time ago, but the forest still hasn't recovered at least in this one area. There's not a lot of greenery. Some of the trees are dead, and kind of as a callback to an earlier scene, there's a fox sitting on a burnt and kind of blasted stump. It's scorched, and there's a fox sitting on it. And at this time, it's the moonlight that's coming through the trees, but the fox isn't looking up the moonlight. It's looking down. It's looking down toward the ground. It's just kind of like looking around. And forgot to move my token onto the map. By moonlight, who these trees remind you of. And again, there's a flashback to what are clearly these woods, but they're green and lush, so it was sometime in the past. And there's a pair of foxes that are like running through the woods and playing and wrestling and chasing rabbits and just having a grand old time. And we go back to like seeing the fox sitting on this stump, like looking into what's now the blackened and blasted, the blackened and blasted like area of this, what had been destroyed by a dragon many years ago. It goes back to a bit of the, again, the earlier flashback of the dragon fire in the forest. And it's still moonlight, and we go back to the clearing, and again, now it's Fawn sitting on this stump, not the fox. And there's tears in her eyes as she's remembering someone who was lost in the dragonfire incident. And she flinches as she feels a hand on her shoulder, but then relaxes and like turns to the side, and it's the Magus is there. And the Magus says, "I'm sorry I wasn't there sooner, but I got there as far as I could. I got there as fast as I could, and I did what I could." And Fawn says, I know. It's just, we did lose, well, I lost someone who was special that day." And the Magus says, "I know, and I'm sorry." And Fawn turns and looks in the Magus's eyes and says, "That dragon's still out there, isn't it?" And she says, "Yes." And I think that may be why, and I think that dragon is key to what is happening to magic these days. And Fawn looks around and says, "That was nearly 30 years ago, and this forest still hasn't grown back." And the Magus says, "That's the nature of dragonfire. And drain things away." Shall we get back to camp? That's probably a good idea. And the two get up and they walk back to camp. I think that's the scene. Looking at the time, I think we have time for like one more scene here in Mirkwood, and then we'll probably need to end the session. So Tim, why don't we have one last scene with Caspian here in Mistwood. And then we'll call it.
Sounds good. Well, since we should roll a die at least once in a session, I'm gonna go to foraging. So if I recall, we roll a d6 for this. Okay. A 1. Okay. So the lesson you teach, where you are wrong. All right.
I just realized I was muted, but it doesn't really matter.
Where you are wrong. Okay. So I think that we're getting close to the edge of Mistwood now. And I am out foraging. I think we are finally starting to run low on provisions. And I think I've told everyone that I'll go off the path a little bit and start to look for, to see if there's anything to eat. Mushrooms, berries, anything at all. And that I'll meet, I'll catch up with them back on the path later. And I think I'm out in the woods, and I can hear something coming behind me, and I turn around, and there's this massive cave bear that's just sort of lumbering through the woods, coming near me. And I realized that I had forgotten to whistle. I wasn't following what I had learned. I had surprised this creature, but now, now it's already been surprised, and it's coming at me, and it looks like I'm prey for it at this point. And so I think I draw my sword out, and I think the bear just rears up on its hind legs and just like knocks the sword out of my hand. And I think you actually see like in that moment, kind of as my arm goes across, as it kind of knocks the sword out, maybe it kind of like rips like the sleeve of my tunic. And I think you can see that my right arm is like just very badly scarred, like it has been burned, basically. And you see like that is damaged, and like even like the hand, is just not like, because the skin is burned so badly, like it can't grip the sword in the same way. And if it's okay, Vago, I'm imagining that maybe at this point you have like kind of had an intuition that something was wrong, and you come in like kind of like clanging your sword, and maybe like you scare this bear away.
Yeah.
And I think that the lesson, I think that I sort of have this realization that just trusting in the strength of my sword arm, or believing that alone is the most important thing, was, that's wrong. Like I have to find strength elsewhere on this new path that I'm forging for myself. And that's the scene, I think. So I thank Vago, and we bring the meager mushrooms I've managed to find, and we catch up with the group on the path. And I think you just see, maybe the camera pans out, and you see the Magus kind of sitting, looking exhausted on the cart. Me just kind of rubbing my arm as, I start to walk down the path with my companions, and you see us kind of coming to the end, the last bend in the path, as we're kind of leaving Mistwood.
I think that's a good note to end the session on.
Yeah.
So this is wonderful, folks. I just love this game. I think we've set as I have found that Fall of Magic tends to have a more often than not, people tend tend to have it's kind of like elegiac and wistful. I've only once played it when it was kind of like this like this rip roaring like fun road trip journey, which is unusual. Usually a lot of these prompts are, they definitely bring the melancholy.
Yeah.
And I just love this game. I think it's a true thing of beauty. I mean, not just the physical beauty of the game. I think just the gameplay. I just think it really just sings. So thanks, folks. I'd like to maybe if you were amenable, I'll stop the camera if you want to do a little stars and wishes debrief.
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Well, I'm going to end this game. That was Fall of Magic. It's if anyone's out there wants to get their hands on a copy. It's produced by a company called Heart of the Deernicorn. They also sell it on Indie Press Revolution, and there is an excellent Roll20 module for it. That's what we were playing with, and it's about as the Roll20 module is about as good as a reproduction as playing with the physical pieces as I think you can get. Well, thanks for playing, folks. If anyone was watching, thanks for watching, and take care.